We're outside and we're planting seeds. It's gonna be a good day. Let's go. Now you might be wondering, isn't it a little early to be starting seeds? April 4th. I mean, it's kind of like not even really spring yet, is it? Well, that's kind of the point. Here in Michigan, we have to prepare. Even though technically it's spring, we still have snow in the forecast. But just because there's snow in the forecast and nights are still going to be in the very high 20s, very low 30s, we still have to prepare for spring, because spring here does not last that long. And I say spring not in the actual term, but the temperature term of spring, what it feels like. It turns into summer weather very quickly here. By early May, we have weather that's rivaling summer temperatures. It's very mild throughout summer, but it lasts a long time. Spring does not last that long here. And the problem is that if you get your stuff in the ground when it's above freezing at nights and you're out of your risk of frost, your days are already in the 60s and 70s, which is that's just too warm for things like spinach and radishes. They'll bolt. So you got to get them in the ground when it's cold. But the problem is then when it's cold, they also don't grow that fast. So things don't happen normally around here in the spring, but it's better to get them in the ground before you can't get them in the ground at all. And so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be prepping the beds to plant our radishes, spinach, lettuce, and some peas. We want to get those in the ground as soon as possible because those are all crops that they can handle some super cold weather. They all have that built-in antifreeze, and they all really will, they'll really benefit from this nice cool weather that we're having. Also, we are going to have some rain in the forecast. That's another thing that I look for. A lot of people ask, what are some things you look for planting? Like, what are your triggers that gets you out in the garden and starts planting direct sowing seed? And the answer to that is kind of gardener's intuition. What I look for is I look for a warming trend first and foremost. If it's in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and it's starting to warm, you can kind of see that warming, climbing trend. I don't want to miss that. But then I also don't want it to be dipping down super low at night. The really highs of the day and the really lows of the night, they shouldn't be super extreme. As things start mellowing out, there's a less of a difference between the daytime temperature and the nighttime temperature. When that starts to when the two kind of start to intersect, and they become way more stabilized, that's when I look to plant. If the days are going to be in the 60s, but the nights are going to be in the 20s, that's like a 40-degree spread, and generally plants won't sprout with that anyways. What you want to look for is like no more than a 20-degree spread. So maybe like 60 in the daytime and 40 in the nighttime, or it might be like 50 in the daytime and 30 in the nighttime. That's perfectly fine, and that's a great time to get out there and direct sow your early spring crops. Another thing that I look for is rain. I always plant just before a rain because it's going to give you a nice burst of warm spring rain. That spring rain, I mean, there's a reason why everything blossoms after a rain. There's a reason why the grass greens up after a rain. It gives them a burst of nitrogen, but it also warms the soil up. The soil is still frozen about a foot down. So if you take all that frozen soil, that acts as an insulator that just radiates that cold. Well, it doesn't really radiate cold, but either way, you know what I mean? It keeps the soil kept very cold. But if you get that nice warm spring rain, nothing like a spring rain can thaw out the soil. So so we're really gonna take a good close look at the weather, plan according to the rain, and get the crops in the ground that are going to need that cool weather plus some nice spring rain. And that's what we look for to start spring planting. So hopefully that helps you out. All right, let's get going. It's always kind of a guessing game of which bed to pick. I would do the cold frame bed. The problem is I don't know if I want to do it in the cold frame bed or not. These are the things that we always think about in early spring when you're laying out the bed. The thing is, they'll be in and out very quickly. We won't have them in the ground very long because spring weather, like I said, doesn't last very long. The The stuff that we plant typically doesn't make it until maybe mid-May. After that, we pull it out. So mid-May is about what we're looking at. By then, I'll have all my tomatoes and stuff already ready to go in the ground. We'll be pretty much full steam ahead. So I think, man, you know what? Yeah, let's do the cold frame bed. I think that'll be best. That way, it'll keep it more warm during the nights. It'll keep it warmer during the day. It has a better chance of sprouting early. And then I can always take off the cold frame if it gets too warm. All right, that's what we'll do. The most common question we get is how we plant high intensity. And we've done a video on how we plant high intensity lettuce, but I figured I'd kind of just go over it again and explain the reasoning for it. So when we plant lettuce, we want to plant our rows about 4 inches apart. So we space our rows 4 inches apart. But when it comes to spacing our plants, we only space our plants about every inch. We don't want a whole lot of spacing in between our plants because it does not allow the plants to self-support each other. You see, the problem is traditionally we've given our plants so much space because farming practices say you should be able to get a tractor through those rows. That's why we space our stuff apart so far, because it was because of all the mechanization of the farm. But in reality, you really don't have to space your stuff that far apart. It actually does far better when it's closer because it shades the soil so that when you have a crop growing here and a crop growing here, they will grow up and overlap. And that actually shades the soil. It helps to insulate the soil during hot days. It helps to insulate the soil during cold nights. It also helps to hold moisture in, and it also helps to protect against weeds. Where there's less sunlight to touch the soil, there's also less sun to be able to photosynthesize weed seeds. So this is what we're working with. This is a ton of seeds here that we're gonna plant. Most of these are our lettuce greens, or our salad greens. And one of the things that I always say is grow your own salad greens. Everyone always asks, what's like the one thing you'd recommend I grow? Salad greens, salad greens, salad greens, salad greens. They are so expensive in the store. They're rarely fresh. They've almost always been sprayed with many, many chemicals because of all the pests that come onto them. And it's one of those things that if you can grow them yourself, you're gonna get fresher, healthier, better tasting stuff. And it's a fraction of the cost. So, I mean, a pound of lettuce at our store, gourmet lettuce, is like $3. We can grow a pound of gourmet lettuce here in like less than a square foot. So I recommend trying it. It's something that you have to do, even if you throw them in a pot, but you've got to get them in your garden. The thing is that, you know, we eat a lot of lettuce. We eat a ton of lettuce because our salads are generally whole meals for us. So we might eat a pound to a pound and a half of lettuce in a day. This 48 square feet here will typically grow about 50 to 60 pounds of lettuce by the time it's all said and done. And so that's a wonderful yield that we get on such a small square footage. I mean, 48 square feet for about anywhere from 50 to 60 pounds. That's over a pound per square foot. So the first thing we're gonna plant is some Bloomsdale longstanding spinach. I'm gonna just throw them down there. Iceberg lettuce. A lot of people ask me, you're planting iceberg lettuce. Aren't you, I thought you were gonna grow them for its leaves in kind of a cut and come again style. We are, absolutely. You still get the same texture of iceberg as you do from a head, only it's just the leaves you're cutting off. And then it regrows. Rather than growing an iceberg head lettuce, waiting 45, 50 days for a single head and having to space it out 6 inches, we're spacing it out 3/4 of an inch to an inch between plants, and each plant is gonna produce, you know, X amount of leaves, and we're gonna harvest those. So that's what we do. We also have the Hanson Improved Crisp Head, another wonderful leaf lettuce. Lola Rosa, nice red lettuce. Little Gem Butterhead. Grandma Admires. Yeah, it's one that got sent to us there. Another one that got sent to us was Marvel des Quarter Saisons. Marvel of 4 seasons, I think, is what that means. I only took French for 1 year, so I think that's what that means. Bib lettuce. This is a Bib butterhead. Strawberry spinach. Early scarlet globe radish. A butter crunch butterhead. I just dropped a bunch, so we'll have to figure out those later. the Pablo lettuce. That's pretty cool. Oak leaf. Grand Rapids leaf lettuce. Great Lakes 118 heading lettuce. Some Mammoth snow melting peas. Those are going to go over there on our trellis. Some Giant Noble spinach. Paris Island Cost lettuce. Red Seals leaf lettuce. Bronze mignonette. Super red romaine lettuce. Lady slipper radish. Red romaine lettuce. Prize leaf. I love the look of that. It's great. It's actually green with red tips. It's real pretty. Red dragon arugula. Slow bolt cilantro. Black seeded Simpson. Freckles, otherwise known as Forlenschloss, but it's kind of come to be known as Freckles lettuce here in the States, but it's actually a German variety of butterhead called Forlenschloss. Sparkler white tip radish. Tango leaf lettuce. And Cimarron. Now I probably dropped 1 or 2 that I did not name, but that's okay, you get the gist of it. I try to mix the colors up so that I have a rainbow when it sprouts. Just cover it up. And water it in, obviously. But it's gonna look incredible when this thing sprouts. I can't even wait. I've never had this many varieties of lettuce in just one raised bed before. It's definitely an all-time record for sure. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. As always, I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure to give it a huge thumbs up. And as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel reminding you to grow big or go home. Catch y'all later. See ya.